Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and celebrate and praise those truly making a difference in our communities. I'm Gary York. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate the support of Wilkes Communications, River Street Productions, and 100.9 WIFM, and thank you for being with us today. Our featured guest is Jeffrey Elmore. He's a 16-year veteran art teacher with the Wilkes County Schools, and he's also an NC House of Representative member, District 94, and he's in his third term. And welcome to our show today, Jeffrey Elmore. And tell us about growing up here in Wilkes County and Wilkesboro, and just a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, very blessed to grow up here. We live in a very special place here in Wilkes and the whole Northwest region of North Carolina. Growing up, it was kind of like I was in two different worlds. By today's standards, my grandparents, the environment that my father grew up in, would be considered extreme poverty. They grew their food, maintained a small farm. As a matter of fact, my grandmother on my mother's side, she was illiterate. She couldn't even read or write. And my dad, through opportunities that arose for him with the booming economy in the area, he worked for Northwestern Bank for years, then went with Gardner Glass Products. It was a real lifestyle change for my family. So growing up, it was almost like I was in two different worlds. And at the time, you didn't realize it because that's your family. And but growing up in that type of environment, it really helped shape my thought process and what I wanted to do with my life, and trying to better the community.
Jeffrey Elmore, in those circumstances or conditions, somewhere along the line, education became very important.
Yes.
Will you share that with us?
Yeah, higher education for me was not an option because with the environment my parents grew up in, they didn't make it a choice. You were going to do this. And because they saw the doors of opportunity that would open when you receive an education, you specialize in a field. And it truly benefited me. And even when I was in high school helping other people tutoring, it led me to say, well, the schools have been really good to me, and it was an environment that I felt self-satisfaction in, so I wanted to continue with it.
The schools you're starting in kindergarten up through high school, share those stops, if you will, along the way.
Yeah, I've been in the school system. Public education here in Wilkes the entire time. I graduated from Wilkes Central High School, and very blessed to go there. At that time, the school was a little bigger than it is now. Active in sports and things, and I think that helps shape young people too. Teaches responsibility, working with other people, what it means to win and lose.
Yeah.
I think that's an important factor that kids need to know, that you can't all the time win, that sometimes you have to lose, and you have to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Real blessed with that, and I had the opportunity. I was a North Carolina teaching fellow.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was an application process, and at the time when I went through it, it was pretty much a full scholarship to one of the state universities. And the agreement was if you take the scholarship, you had to teach for 4 years in the public schools. Now, they had some variations of it. If you went to a high-risk school or a high-poverty area, you could, it's almost kind of like being an indentured servant, if you want to think of it.
Sure.
You could get through it in 3 years. I went to Appalachian with that scholarship. They had a very thriving teaching fellow program. And we're very blessed to have Appalachian State in our area. At first I was hesitant on going there because I thought, well, it's just right here in the back door. But when you start comparing the state universities to one another in teacher preparation, truly Appalachian, in my opinion, is the best in the state in preparing someone to go into the classroom
Wow.
and work with kids. And we're blessed to have that just right here, minutes away from our area.
I had the opportunity in Surrey to serve on the screening committee.
Yeah.
One of the most enriching days of my life for about 15 years. One day we would come together in November and interview the youngsters, and wow, what an incredible experience. So there also were summer enrichment programs with that teaching fellowship. Jeffrey Elmore, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, it was wonderful. They would rotate when I went through the program. At one time, they would require a touring of the entire state.
Yes.
But at the time that I went through, they realized that was too big of a bear in the time frame that they had. So I had the opportunity to tour almost all of eastern North Carolina. So we went to Washington County, which is one of the most poverty-stricken counties in the entire state. And I'll never forget when we came with the group, they had large tables set up, and they had barbecue chicken. They were smoking chicken for us to feed us. We visited hog farms, we visited strawberry fields. We truly got a total experience of what it means to live in eastern North Carolina. And at the same time, the school systems were excited that the group was coming because they were using it as a recruitment tool.
Yeah.
That if something really struck you in the area that you were looking at, they would follow up with phone calls and say, why don't you come to Dublin County, we have a position, or why don't you come to Washington County, we have a position. Because it was very hard to recruit people in rural eastern North Carolina. And we have the same problem too in rural western North Carolina, even now. So that problem hasn't been eliminated. We still have to work on recruitment in our rural areas of educators to get them in the systems.
In those formative youngster years were role models. Do you remember some folks that might have helped you in a special way?
Well, I think family's important, and I think it's very cliche, but it really wasn't for me. My grandmother that I was talking about,
yes.
The struggles that I saw that she had and how she dealt with it, both financially and also not being able to even read. A trip to a grocery store was a real challenge for her. If they switched the product color, that would be confusing for her. And then my father's been a big influence in my life. He is a man of faith. He's very strong in his faith, and through his life, sometimes that faith gets challenged. He felt like his beliefs could hinder him from progressing, but he always stood firm. And I think that that's taught me that you've got to maintain your values, and the Lord will lead you in the right directions.
Yeah. Your significant role in the Wilkes County Public Schools, you're in art. That's your passion or your calling, if you will. Sure. Tell us about being an art teacher.
Art is life, and what's neat about the subject that I teach, it helps children understand themselves and understand how do you deal with emotion, how do you get that emotion into a physical form. Deals with innovation, creativity, and Gary, I think that's the only competitive edge that the United States has now. We are the creative people, we are the innovators. The Chinese can make things very efficiently, but they can't create or design the new product or the new up-and-coming thing. And that's what's neat about my subject matter. It encourages that, it teaches that, and it gets children to think, and to think outside the box. It's not a rote learning environment, it's a creative environment. And I think it's critical for the generations coming up, especially with information like it is, where it's at your fingertips and you're being fed all sorts of things. They've got to be able to think through that, decipher it, and create it and shape it for themselves. And that's what art can do for kids.
in the school system, you move in some different campuses.
Yes.
Let our folks know how maybe a week is for you, Jeffrey Elmore.
Okay. I am currently doing elementary art. That's how I started my career. And I did middle school at North Wilkes Middle for most of my career. And then I even had a stint at East Wilkes High School. In my role in the state legislature, they work with me. And kind of the agreement is I fill where there's holes. So a week for me, right now I'm at Mulberry Elementary and North Wilkesboro Elementary. And it's a rotation basis. I see the kids once every 6 days. So I will, let's say that I'm at Mulberry Elementary. My class load for that day is about 6 classes, ranging from kindergarten through 5th grade. So I see 5-year-olds to 11-year-olds.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's been a real treat. Kindergartners are hilarious. The whole world's in front of them, and they're just fascinated by absolutely everything. And it's helped give me some better perspective when you work with real young kids. You realize their innocence, their bright eyes, their excitement about the world, and it's really helped me rejuvenate me a little bit with that, seeing that. And also, too, it's helped me realize I don't understand how people can be cruel to children.
Right.
When you work with them.
Wow.
And see they're all innocent little minds that are just wanting to fill their brains with as much as they possibly can.
Right. Wow. And along the way, you had a calling into public service.
Sure.
And that's part of your, very important part of your life today. It's important for us that you are our representative. You're the person who can provide the answers. So tell me about that calling.
Well, I first got involved in politics. I was a North Wilkesboro commissioner, and I served on the town board for the town of North Wilkesboro. And when I first ran, I was 28. And folks, I was told by one person, they said, you'll either come in first place or you'll come in last place. And I said, okay. But it was exciting. The town at that time was going through a lot of, I think, philosophical change, and it seemed a little chaotic. And I was frustrated, and I thought, well, you know, if someone else isn't going to fix it, I'll just try. I'll try. And I put my name out there and worked and worked and worked. And it was a big slate of candidates, traditional politicians that had run for years, had served prior. And I ended up being the, not first, but second. And at that time, there were 3 seats on the board. And it was quite interesting because that was the first time the Republicans had a majority on the North Wilkesboro board in the history of the town with my election. So it was an interesting thing in the town. And then with the state house, now Senator Randleman, she held the House seat. And at that time, she had decided to retire or get out of public service, and the seat opened up. And with all of the regulations, all of the mandates and things that were coming out of Raleigh, being a school teacher, that's what frustrated me more than anything.
Frustration.
Frustration, yes, because I feel like teachers need time to teach. They need the ability to teach. They've been trained to teach, and many of our teachers have vast experience. They know how to teach children to read. They know how to do it. Give them the flexibility and the ability to do it. And I thought, well, I'm going down to the state level to make that change. And in my 2 terms that I've served, that's what I've worked to do. The only frustrating thing that I found is it doesn't move fast enough. Government moves like a slug,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Which I guess there's positives to that, but that's what led me to the state level, because I wanted to help the teachers have the ability to do what they know is right for kids.
So you're starting your 3rd term, and there'll be a swearing-in coming up in the next few days.
Yes.
Share that with us, how that'll happen and how that goes.
Yeah, it's coming up January 11th. We'll officially be sworn in on the House floor. All 120 members will be there, and we will be sworn in all at the same time. Also, at that time, we would be electing our Speaker of the House, which is the person that manages all of the flow of the legislation and does committee assignments. And they'll say a few words on their vision for the upcoming session.
We also spoke about the legislature long-term, short-term.
Yes.
Let us learn about that, if you will.
Okay. What we're going into in the odd number years after the election is what's called the long session. It starts in January and it runs theoretically to July 1, the start of the fiscal year. And the goal of this is to develop the budget, which our budget is actually a biennium budget. It's a 2-year budget. A lot of people think that we do a yearly budget, but technically it's a 2-year budget for the state. And in the long session also is proposals for new laws. That's when they are to be filed and ideas from different members come out. Then in the even number years is what's called the short session, and it runs from mid-May. This past one we started the 1st of May to July 1, and the intent of that session is to do budget adjustments to the document that was created before. And then also too, with legislation being proposed, it had to make what's called crossover, meaning it had to pass one chamber or the other to be able to be talked about in the short session.
Okay. Jeffrey Elmore, I want for you to help us a little bit. You talked about your number of the 120, the rankings, and just in a layman's terms, help us with how that works, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people, we all have numbers on our license plates, and a lot of people think that the number is our district number, but that's not accurate. It's actually our seat number, and the seat numbers are given based on seniority,
right?
And it does even cross party lines. Who has seat number 1? Her name is Representative Julia Howard. She's out of Davie County, and she served 28 years in the legislature. So she is the longest serving Republican in the chamber. So she is in seat 1. But on the front row, on the other side, you have Representative Mickey Michaud out of Durham, who has served almost the exact same amount of time as Representative Howard. And so he is seated closer to the front on the front row based on seniority. So as you go back, the chamber is split between the Democrats and the Republicans, but the further back you go is the amount of experience that you have. And then kind of to throw an interesting twist into it, the Speaker of the House always takes the back corner seat, but he never sits there. He's always in front of the chamber, but that's, since he is the Speaker, he has the back corner seat.
Okay. You talked about your seatmate, or what'd you call that? He's just across the way there beside you, or tell me about that.
Yeah, we're almost like Noah's Ark. We're 2 by 2. We share a desk, and in the middle is the voting machine,
yes,
which I have buttons on my side and he has buttons on his. My seatmate is Representative Carl Ford, and he lives in China Grove. He's actually a radio man too, does internet radio.
Okay.
And very interesting fellow. So he sits to my right, and there's 2 by 2 as it goes up. And it's interesting with the buttons. Like let's say you have a scenario that I need to go to the restroom or something, and I say, Carl, the vote's coming up. Can you reach over and vote for me? Vote yes or no. You legally can't do that. That is against the law. I'm the only person that can touch those buttons at my seat.
Wow.
By law.
Okay. Yeah. Then you shared with me the committee assignments, the process. Help us with that, if you will.
Yeah, that's where the Speaker of the House is very important. The Speaker is the person that dictates what committees that you're on. We have committees that range from ideal and education committees. The House maintains 3 education committees. I'm chairman of Education K-12, which deals with the lower grades, and we have education universities and education community colleges. That's our structure, but the committee range, we have a committee that deals with aging, which deals with senior citizen issues, children and families, which deals with young people issues, health and human services, agriculture, basically any aspect of the economy, there's a committee for it. And the speaker has the power to put you on committees that you really are passionate about or you want to work
You
in.
let them know early on your area of interest, and that's considered when the assignments are coming out.
Yes, very much so. And they consider your background also when
Okay.
you choose your committees. They try matching your skill set with the committee that you're put on. So, for example, with the Agriculture Committee, we have guys that maintain farms. On the Agriculture Committee, retired state employees on the Personnel Committee, because they understand those issues.
Wow. Okay. You're right now, if you've told me, let's do that again, your committees that you serve today.
I'm chair.
Do you know about coming up, what they'll be?
Well, I'm hoping to stay on the same committees because I'm passionate about that work.
Okay.
And I've a lot of the stuff that I deal with, pretty much I'm on any governmental worker committee. If it deals with a government worker, I'm on that committee.
Okay.
State personnel, I'm also on pensions, which deals with the retirement system. I'm chair of Education K-12. Also, I'm on public utilities,
Okay.
which I think is very critical because of our utility infrastructure, from phones to gas lines, and that's very important for rural North Carolina.
Yes.
We've got to make sure the infrastructure's there. But I've led myself to those committees because being a state employee myself and teaching
Yes,
school,
yes.
I get to see the issues that directly affect not only me, but folks who are like me.
Okay. Jeffrey Elmore, you spoke about to be effective, you have to kind of look up to folks and ask, can you help? Tell us a little bit about how things really work in Raleigh,
Sure.
if you will.
Sure. Everything is about personal relationships. You have to build relationships with people. It doesn't matter how great your idea is. If you can't work with someone else and communicate with them, it really doesn't matter if it's the greatest thing in the world, because you have to have their vote to be able to move the piece of legislation. So you have to be able to explain what you want to do in a very simple way, and you basically have to sell it to another person. And the best thing that I did, the piece of advice I was given when I first was elected, was you need to talk to the older members, the folks that have been there for a long time, and they can explain to you how you need to approach things. And I followed that advice, and it really helped me because you understood who you needed to talk to about certain things, who might be your total opposition, and you need to understand that too. Who's going to be the person that absolutely detests what you're trying to do, and
Right.
you need to figure out how to approach them, and also figure out how to basically work around them. How you know that they're not going to be supportive, but how do you work it to where basically that opposition is so minimal that your bill can still move on.
You talked about the flow of a bill. Share that with us today.
The flow of the bill is, the way that it's set up is very systematic, and it's actually positive because it keeps extreme things from happening quickly. You file a bill. I have a right to file any bill as a member. So I can create whatever piece of legislation I want, and I file it with the clerk's office. So I have that right. Now that doesn't mean that the bill will go anywhere. And once it's filed, it does what's called the first reading, and the reading clerk on the floor will read the bill in. At that point, a member can object to the bill, and it could kill the bill at that point. But that rarely happens. Then the bill would move to committee assignment, and that's where the power of the Speaker of the House comes from. He gets to decide where that bill goes. He might send it directly to one committee to where it could get out of the committee easily, or he could send it to 15 different committees where it would have to be referred around, and the odds of it moving through that many committees
Is that what's called kill it?
In essence, it would kill it because it might be heard in one committee, but it has 10 more to go, so it would be impossible to get through it. And then once it's heard in committee, which the committee specializes in whatever area that bill deals with. So you have people, let's say it's a education bill, you have former teachers and superintendents and folks sitting on that committee who understand it.
Yeah.
If they approve it, then it goes to the House floor, and then it's voted. And it's voted once in second reading, and then it's voted one more time. Then it sends over to the Senate, where it goes through the exact same process, and then to the governor, who has the power to veto or not.
Wow.
So it's set up very systematically to make sure that stuff is vetted and it's not just done in 15 minutes.
Those of us who watch a lot of politics on TV and government, we hear caucus.
Yes.
Caucus. Share with our audience today about the essence of a caucus.
Okay. What a caucus is basically a like-minded group, and you do have the Republican caucus and the Democrat caucus, but you also have other caucuses that exist. We have what's called a sportsman's caucus. These are members that are interested in outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, and they have a like interest. So that crosses party lines, and they will meet and discuss issues that are facing the Wildlife Committee or ideas that they have for improving hunting and fishing in the state. There's even a motorsports caucus that deals with the racing industry. So folks where that's very important, the reps that are from the area around Cabarrus and Concord, very passionate about the motorsports caucus, and the folks from Mooresville area, because there's a lot of race teams based there. So you do have other caucuses other than just the Republican and Democrat caucus.
How about yours?
Well, I participate in the Motorsports Caucus because of the role that racing had here in North Wilkesboro to keep up with the industry with that. And that's pretty much my only side caucus. I haven't got involved in the Sportsman's Caucus yet, but I would like to. John Bell is the one in charge of that, representative out of Kinston.
Okay. Friday you come home? Is that when you're in long session, you come home on Friday?
Yes, I do. Travel down on Monday, and usually session starts about 6 or 7 o'clock that night. Then we will have committee meetings in the mornings, and then session in the afternoons. Usually it's about a 12-hour day.
Okay.
Committees will start 8:30. Then we're usually not done with session until about 8:30 between the committees and that. And we will work through Thursday. And at the end of session on Thursday, I drive back to the district. And during long session, I use Fridays to meet with constituents, other elected officials, local elected officials on issues that they have, things that might be moving through the legislature that they have concern with. So I utilize that Friday to do district-related work.
Okay. The most number of phone calls.
Oh, Lord.
It was about.
Well, we had a special session this December, and in a matter of about 5 hours, I had 1,200 and some emails. When I was deleting an email, 2 more would pop up. But here's what's interesting about it, Gary. Not all of those emails are from the district. A lot of the members get very scared of that. But they're from people, I was even getting emails from people out of California and Delaware and places like that. So I tried narrowing it down to who is actually emailing me with concerns from the district, because I'm elected to represent the district and the people of it.
Okay. Jeffrey, this has been a wonderful experience, and we want to thank Wilkes Communications and the River Street Productions and 100.9. You wanted to close with your how you embrace Wilkes in this area and the significance that, of education, the community colleges, schools, and how grateful. Just kind of pull that together in the last few seconds, if you will, today.
Well, I think for our young people coming up, and this has been something I've been passionate about, is the idea of resilience. I feel like a lot of our young people feel embarrassed of our area, or that they want to immediately leave. And we live in a great place. We're truly blessed, and the value sets that have been instilled in our community and our culture are so important, and is something that we shouldn't be ashamed of. It's something that we should be proud of, because that resilience of these generations before us has shaped this place. And our young people can be the next people to shape it.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting about being a teacher and also playing this role as a state representative, because truly the young people coming up are the future, and they're going to be the ones sitting in this seat, my seat.
Right.
And we need people that are excited about our area and proud of our area to sit in those roles.
Stay home.
Yeah.
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 You've enriched our lives today, and I want to thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope you'll consider coming back again. And our conversation tells me about you that in giving we receive.
Yes. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for being a
Thank you.
significant role model today. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks.